Well, CBS News is launching a new investigative series that looks at the disturbing rise in unsolved murder cases nationwide. Crime Without Punishment is a joint investigation between CBS stations across the country and our investigative team here in New York. Today, in the U.S., there's about a 50-50 chance that a killer will never be arrested after taking someone's life, especially if the victim is Hispanic or Black. For police departments in cities like Philadelphia, it's a huge challenge. In the first of three powerful stories this week, Chief Investigative and Senior National Correspondent Jim Axelrod went inside Philadelphia's homicide unit to see firsthand why it's so hard to solve murder cases. And Jim is here. Jim, good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you. There were more than 500 homicides in Philadelphia last year, more than ever before. Over half still remain unsolved. We wanted to see why, so we visited the Philadelphia Police Department, the fourth largest in the country. And what we found were detectives overloaded, overwhelmed, and wide awake on a Thursday morning at 4 a.m.
It is just after dawn in Philadelphia.
This is going to happen pretty fast once they get out. We'll jump out now.
Like they do 2 to 3 times every week, detectives from the city's homicide unit, along with a SWAT team, are raiding a house where they believe a murder suspect is holed up. They are looking for the man getting out of this car in this video, who they think then shot and killed an Uber driver in a case of mistaken identity. On this morning, the raid is successful.
Yeah, we have 2 suspects in custody.
As they take 2 men wanted in connection with the shooting into custody. Philadelphia homicide detective Joe Murray.
At this point, are you feeling optimistic?
So far, so good. But right now, we're off to a good start.
Murray and the 5 other detectives in his unit spend each day confronting one of the most troubling questions in law enforcement today. Why do so many murders now go unsolved and unpunished in America?
For us, it's the volume.
562 homicides were committed in Philadelphia last year. That's about 11 each week.
It's the number of murders. And we just keep going and going and going. It's just, the volume just comes in and it just crushes you.
In the 1960s, police solved 8 out of every 10 murder cases in America. Today, it's barely 1 in 2.
Nationwide, it's a 50-50 coin flip.
Thomas Hargrove runs the Murder Accountability Project, a nonprofit that tracks the homicide clearance rate. That's how often the police solve murder cases.
It has never been this bad. During the last 7 months of 2020, most murders went unsolved, and that's never happened before in America.
And today, everything changed. Technology is the key.
As Philadelphia's Chief Inspector Frank Venor told us, more than just gumshoe detectives combing a crime scene for shell casings and buttonholing witnesses.
Just about every murder has sometimes dozens of sources of video.
These days, the focus of the first 48 hours after a homicide, the most crucial stretch for investigators, is gathering video.
Video has become our new witness.
We visited Philadelphia 5 days after a shooting on South Street, a bustling commercial center, left 3 dead and 11 wounded.
The area is blanketed by video surveillance.
During that time, lead investigator Captain Jason Smith's team gathered no less than 45 angles of the shooting. But this modern-day dragnet of sweeping social media and canvassing businesses for video is time-consuming, often requiring warrants and subpoenas. But it works. While they were showing us footage from the South Street shooting, detectives got word of 2 more arrests.
They're in custody.
You just got word.
Just got word right now.
You feel that the arrests were made so quickly because of the video that you have?
Without a doubt.
But for all the technology, it's no match for what cops and chiefs told our investigative teams at CBS stations across the country. What hinders murder investigations most is the breakdown between police and communities of color in a post-George Floyd world.
There's a trust factor that we lost along the way, and we try every day to build that trust factor back up.
Our investigative data team analyzed unsolved murders across the country. The rate of arrests over the last 30 years when the victim is white has risen above 85%. Watch how the rate declines when the victim is Hispanic. And even fewer arrests are made when the victim is black.
The disparity is stunning.
It is stunning. It's not just here. It's not just here.
Danielle Outlaw is the commissioner of the Philadelphia Police Department.
This disparity isn't 5 or 10 points.
No,
this
you're
disparity
absolutely right.
is gaping.
Yes.
Are black murders pursued as aggressively?
Yes.
As urgently?
Yes.
With the same amount of manpower?
Yes. Yes. Again, it's
so
across.
So then why do you end up with this kind of disparity?
I think it's obvious. I'm a black woman, and I run the 4th largest police department in the country. What we need is a collaborative effort in solving these cases and an acknowledgement to what I think is there now, that it's going to take more than the police to clear these cases.
And sometimes it sounds like what's implicit is that the community of color needs to trust the police more.
No, not at all. We're talking about historically issues, systemic inequities that contribute to the mistrust, and then also things that the police have done and we've gotten in our own way. It has to be a two-way street, as it is with any relationship.
Just an arrest is enough to move a murder case into the cleared column, even if the suspect still awaits a hearing, as this man now is. This counts as a good day for the beleaguered detectives in Philadelphia, who don't have time to examine the trends. They're too busy trying to reverse them.
Tomorrow we'll report on the toll these unsolved murders take on a community. We visit a group of mothers in Jackson, Mississippi, who've felt the pain of losing their child and are struggling to find justice.
Well, Jim, as you know, as everyone knows, I live in Philadelphia. This is a story that I not only know well, having covered many of these cases, but my husband's, godson was murdered in a way that many young black men are murdered in the city. He was shot sitting on a porch, 2 summers ago. There has been zero movement on that case. He's a young man with a daughter. And so, when you show us the racial disparity, it just angers me so much.
Totally get that.
Can you give us a little more insight into that?
I think it's a very important fact to get out there, to make sure that people understand as we took on this reporting mission of just looking into this 50-year trend. So it is fact that we have, as you saw in the piece, 8 out of 10 murders being cleared, arrests being made in 1972 and 50-50 now. So that was undeniable. But then our data people began to look several layers beneath the surface there and found this racial disparity. And then sort of the reporting began to change as we followed that. And as you said, as you saw, we sort of put it to Commissioner Outlaw there, what's going on. And over and over, you would hear from various police officials in various cities, hey, look, there's this mistrust of the community. But there's almost this sense when you hear that somehow that's implicit on communities of color to do better.
No pun intended, sounds like an excuse.
Well, I do think that what Commissioner Outlaw was saying was, I get it.
Right.
It's the police we have to either meet halfway or even more than halfway at this point. And I think she is trying to be a new voice in what has been a painful and ugly past. She's trying to give it some different path as we head into the future.
I mean, we all of us watched Rika Duncan this morning report on a young man who was thrown in the back of a police vehicle without any restraints, and when he was taken out of the vehicle, he was paralyzed. That just happened this week, or recently, and you can now see why they're struggling with this. And as the Commissioner Outlaw says, it is also incumbent on police to mend these fences. It's not just on people of color.
So we also want to not just sit here and detail problems, but we do want to look for solutions. For instance, this very painful chapter your family is dealing with. So as this series rolls on, tomorrow we're going to hear from some mothers in Jackson, Mississippi dealing with pain. And then Friday, we offer you a piece on what the solutions may look like to reverse this trend.
And we haven't even, Jim, talked about how just sort of monumental this is, that this is CBS News and CBS News Stations in conjunction with all of our affiliates and stations across the country. I think it's remarkable. Thank you very much. Team effort, really
Thanks
indeed.
for having me, folks.
Appreciate it, Jim, as always. The CBS Reports documentary, Crime Without Punishment, Fighting for Justice, premieres tomorrow, June 30th at 8 p.m. Eastern on CBS News Streaming. And again, as we've been pointing out, streaming on 14 major stations throughout the United States.